Lots of campaign and protest movements today say that they have been inspired by the great struggles of the past. And the names that are always mentioned are Gandhi, Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. I've been vocal in arguing that generally today's protest movements achieve almost nothing because they simply haven't learned the strategy lessons from those people that they find so inspiring. In this video, I'm going to go through what ultimately made Gandhi successful and why modern protest movements completely fail to get anywhere close. Number one on the list, and one of the most important, leadership. Gandhi actually provided directive leadership. He led the movement, he shaped it and followed his strategy. Now you might think that's fairly obvious, but clearly not. The vast majority of modern protest movements make a virtue out of being essentially leaderless. This is supposed to be empowering. Unfortunately, crowds of people don't follow good strategy. They do whatever appears in front of them, whatever ideas occur to them, and whatever they see someone else doing that they like. Now, you can argue for that approach all you like, but the historical protest movements that were successful didn't do it that way, full stop. Number two, appropriate strategy. The strategy Gandhi developed was appropriate for the problem he was trying to solve. In this case, you had a large population that were being ruled by a foreign power. That gives you a fantastic dynamic if you want to bring those people together, because ultimately a small group cannot rule over a larger group if that larger group refuses to be ruled over. So the choices he made were designed to maximise the impact of that position. Was that because he was a strategic genius and he would have followed a different approach in a different situation? Say, if he was alive today and campaigning for climate change? Who knows? Probably not. Sometimes, like Winston Churchill in World War II, you can have a figure that has pretty limited range who just turns out to be the perfect fit for the situation at hand. Which is an ironic comparison, of course, because Churchill was completely inept in dealing with Gandhi and the Indian uprising, but we don't have time to go into that. Since modern campaign movements are leaderless and don't really follow a strategy, this is another no-brainer. When they think they're following a strategy, usually it's just that they've cherry-picked a few things from Gandhi or Martin Luther King and applied them without any real understanding of why or what they expect to result. Number three, building empathy. Since the wider population, and particularly the mass of rural India, were to be part of the campaign, Gandhi went to great lengths to become seen very much as one of them. While his more haughty fellow campaigners dressed in suits and met in the big cities, Gandhi dressed as the villagers did and toured rural India. Whilst being clearly extraordinary and an inspiration to those people, he did his best to understand them, to talk their language and to show that he was one of them. This was a lengthy process of building a common identity and loyalty. By and large, the campaigners of today are perfectly happy to make themselves look strange and different to the people that are meant to be, or who should be, their target audience. Being individualistic is more important to them than reducing or removing the barriers to being influential. Number four, reinforce group identity. Now, when you're a subjugated nation, it's the easiest thing, in theory, to appeal to a sense of national identity. Gandhi went further, encouraging people to focus on self-reliance. One of the symbols of the resistance became the spinning of homespun cloth, alongside a boycott of imported British cloth. The wearing of homespun became a symbol of a free India. And the genius of it as a symbol was that, yes, the boycott could hurt the British Empire, but way more importantly, spinning homespun cloth was something that could be done at every village, on every day. It became a unifying symbol, and one which was about building an alternative India that would stand on its own 2 feet. Number five, winning outside sympathy. Gandhi insisted that all action would be non-violent. Now, this wasn't the easy non-violence of modern-day protest movements who generally expect their police will have to treat them with respect. This was non-violence sometimes in the face of extreme counter-violence. And that fact alone made the Indian movement look dignified in the eyes of the outside world, and the British Empire, whenever it allowed itself to be provoked, as the bully. The fact that Gandhi encouraged foreign journalists to visit served to make the most of it. Number six, discipline. Mass civil disobedience, particularly in volatile circumstances, is almost impossible to pull off. Gandhi built massive personal authority and then used it relentlessly to urge the discipline required on large numbers of people to make the strategy work. When that discipline broke down and violence was perpetrated by protesters at Chaura, Gandhi immediately called off the campaign, much to the despair of his troops and his fellow leaders. But the fact that he did that meant that the next time the campaign started up, people were much more careful because they knew that if they lapsed, then Gandhi could slam on the brakes. Number 7, unity. Of course, there wasn't a conveniently homogenous group of Indians. There were Hindus and there were Muslims, and a long history of a turbulent relationship between them, which the British Empire had doubtless played on over the decades of divide and rule. Gandhi made Hindu-Muslim unity one of his cornerstones, but it was one of the most difficult to achieve, and of course it was the area that ultimately proved to be beyond him. He managed to stop some of the conflicts by going on hunger strike until the violence stopped, but ultimately the peaceful withdrawal by the British was followed by the extremely bloody division of India into India and Pakistan. However, the goal was sound, and it made the movement effective up until the end. Number 8, reasonableness. Gandhi treated the British as good people who would one day become persuaded it was in their interest to quit India. He sought to make it easy for them, for all that he provoked them until they put him in prison because he offered them a way forward where they could keep faith. He spent time understanding who they were and what really motivated them. Now, usually in conflicts of this sort, you get two sides who simply demonize each other, display equal amounts of lack of empathy and enmity. Gandhi wanted Britain to become a valued partner of a free India. In that, he was looking to the long game, looking to the India he wanted to create, not just the moment of triumph. Number 9, focus. When Gandhi led a march to the sea to illegally make salt, breaking the law that said that the British state had a monopoly on its creation, this then led to mass civil disobedience where everyone began making and selling illegal salt. They didn't do that 1 week and then move on to something else the next, and then take a different theme the week after. They selected their action carefully and kept on with it until the British were forced to respond. Leaderless movements take a let a thousand flowers bloom approach and are incapable of that sort of focus. Number 10, the right action. Gandhi agonized for long periods of time before alighting upon the ideas for the protests that he adopted. They had to fit the model. They should be something that would eventually force the authorities to respond. They should be able to be carried out by the majority of the population, be inherently non-violent. They should involve something that could become a part of everyday life. Making, selling and buying illegal salt was something you could do wherever you were and could be done often. It meant that the wider population felt that they were part of a movement, and that feeling was reinforced every day, and that was how you built momentum. When he first adopted it, it was a controversial choice amongst his colleagues, who felt that the salt tax was a very minor thing to focus on compared to the big constitutional questions that they wanted to put the spotlight on. Only as the movement progressed did the powerful dynamic become evident to them and to the British. Number 11, building the new system. While putting pressure on the British to quit India, Gandhi also built through the Indian National Congress the political alternative that would be fit and ready to take over once that happened. Building your alternatives, not simply asking others to give it to you, was a key part of the Gandhian approach. And finally, number 12, patience. Part of a discipline that Gandhi enforced, being ready to halt a campaign if it wasn't proceeding in the right way, was informed by his recognition that this was a campaign for the long term. Nothing destroys discipline so much as the belief that things are urgent and that big change needs to happen right now. That, of course, is so often the conceit of modern campaign movements, and ironically, it's why they usually end up achieving no real change at all. Gandhi was also prepared to end campaigns for deals that many of his contemporaries believed to be weak. But the principle of mass action and resistance had been established, and with each new campaign the movement grew stronger. Gandhi wanted success in the right way more than he wanted success right now, because he knew that success right now in the wrong way would probably result in a worse outcome. Such strategic considerations are completely alien to modern leaderless or poorly led protest movements. So that's the list. I haven't tried to tell in this short video the story of what Gandhi did or how the whole campaign played out. Below there's a handful of resources that you can use to investigate that if you want to know more about Gandhi's extraordinary life and campaign. Please note one thing though, none of this video has been about Gandhi as a religious figure or as a saintly figure that some people believe him to have been, or any of the alternatives. Whatever you think of Gandhi as a person is neither here nor there. What I've tried to focus on was the strategy he followed and why it suited the circumstances of his time. If circumstances had been different, this might well not have been a successful strategy. Likewise, I'm not saying that Gandhi only adopted these for strategic reasons. For instance, his commitment to non-violence was a basic value, not a strategic device. But that doesn't change the narrative within the scope of this video. The things that do remain consistent is that you need leadership, discipline, and your approach should be realistically connected to the outcome you're trying to achieve. You shouldn't underestimate people's capacity to do whatever random shite comes into their head and then post-rationalise why it's a genius thing to do. Do you agree? Disagree? Leave your comments below.